What's up, everyone? It is time to talk the penultimate episode of Season 2 of The Last of Us, Episode 6, titled The Price. Matt here. Welcome to another Down Once More pod recap, instant reaction, thoughts on The Last of Us Season 2. So, first time here, time codes will identify sections I get into spoilers for future portions of the game that have not happened, predictions for future of the show, so skip those if you want to go in unbothered. But for now, I'm going to be talking spoilers about the show so far, and I will be talking this week. I can't really separate it out that much. Spoilers for things that happened of this episode in the show that take place in the game. Some comparisons to how they are portrayed in the game and some of the key differences of the timing and where they take place. And then a little bit of talk of thoughts about the rest of what we will see in the final episode of the season next week, and then on to the future of season 3. So let's get into the episode. I will say this episode directed by Neil Druckmann. Going into this, it was pretty well hyped. Critics saw the entire season before it came out. This is the episode that people were identifying as one of the peak, the pinnacle, one of the best episodes of the season. And I have to say, I do feel like it was a very strong episode, directed by Neil Druckmann, who wrote and directed the games, both the games from Naughty Dog. This one probably had the most line-for-line dialogue moments from the game, and especially the final closing scene of this episode was almost shot for shot from the game. So they did a great job there. However, there were a number of key differences that is just on point for what I have been calling out in my recaps throughout the season so far, and that is the tone of Bella Ramsey's Ellie being a lot more jokey and them kind of downplaying the dramatics and the seriousness and the gravitas of everything that's happened. The game, extremely dark, very few moments of levity. And the show keeps finding ways to bring that into it and try to make it seem like it's not so much of a bummer. But I don't feel like it's that bad thing to embrace the bummer sometimes. So one of the first sections, this is primarily a flashback episode, very Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey heavy as Joel and Ellie. And the first flashback we get is actually something new that's added for the show that wasn't in the game, and that's Joel and Tommy as kids. 1983 in Texas. Tommy trying to buy some drugs. Joel ends up beating up a bunch of kids that Tommy was buying drugs from. Cops get called. Their dad's a cop. Hear that their dad beat them a little bit. And they have some back and forth. Joel's kind of lying to protect Tommy. And at the end of the episode, when Craig Mazin's talking, he's like, this is where we see that Joel, even since he was young, where he's kind of come from, seeing himself as a protector of the weak, a little more innocent, and a little bit of a savior complex, wanting to step in and protect those he loved and see kind of the model he had of a father figure who kind of abusive, kind of rough around the edges. And his dad tells him when Joel's kind of poking holes in it, his dad's trying to justify his actions and what he does. And his dad eventually tells him, he says, in the future, when you get a chance, I hope you do a little better than me. And so kind of that thought that, hey, we want you to be able to see growth. You see my example. You see how it's affecting you. I don't feel like I'm capable of doing better. I'm doing a little bit better than my father was to me. He was abusive too. I get that that's not okay. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm doing a little bit better. It's on you to do a little bit better than me next. And kind of give that backstory to both Joel and Tommy's relationship a little bit, which didn't come into play in this episode, but also just Joel's motivation and driving factor and force and feeling like he needs to protect those and lie to protect those he loves as well. And then our first flashback is about Bella Ramsey, I don't know why I said Bella Ramsey, Ellie's 15th birthday. Joel brings a cake made by Seth, and he's building a guitar for Ellie too, so we see him put love into crafting this guitar, replacing so many things on it. And the night before her birthday, Ellie comes in with the burn on her arm, and she's high on painkillers, and she did the burn to cover the bite. I have to say, I have been a Bella Ramsey defender. I haven't loved the choices they've been making when they're playing Ellie this season, but I think that goes into some of the writing and directing. Like, it seems like they're intentionally trying to infuse some comedic moments and levity into the show. And like I said, I'm trying to come to grips with accepting that show Ellie and game Ellie are two completely different characters. But Bella Ramsey, not great at acting high on painkillers. That scene was painful for me to watch. Now, they redeem themselves a little bit in the scene later on when they're just angry at Joel and outing Joel killing Eugene to Gale, and just the tears coming down, and same with the porch scene. So those scenes, fantastic. Bella Ramsey is a very capable actor. That scene on painkillers, bad. Let's not make Bella Ramsey. I don't think Bella Ramsey has ever been under the influence of substances based on how that scene played out. But on her birthday is when Joel gives her the guitar. He plays Future Days for her, which it did not hit the same for me in the show, and I thought it would. In the game, it's this moment when Joel gives Ellie the guitar. It's he wants to play the song for her, and it's the if I ever were to lose you, then I would lose myself. And we had Ellie play that a little bit at the beginning of the theater, and you wonder what the significance of that is if you haven't played the games. But in the games, when Joel brings her the guitar, things are already kind of tense between them. Like, Ellie has her suspicions and hunches of what Joel did at Salt Lake City at the hospital, and things are already tense where she's kind of dismissing him, wanting him to go away, and everything. And that isn't what it was in the show. In the show, she's acting like she's still high on painkillers. She goes and just takes a handful of cake, which just seems like it's something out of a slapstick comedy. It was a weird move for me, but like the scene had so much of the dialogue from that scene where she's like, "What's this?" And Joel's like, some folks call this a guitar," and making that joke. In the show, Ellie is kind of pissed at Joel and being distant, and he's like making the joke kind of to break the tension. Here, it's just a casual, jokey, chummy moment. And I don't know, it took away some of the impact for me. I just didn't. Their relationship being strained that early on, and being strained basically since the end of where the first season of the show, where the first game left off, is a big point. That tension has been building. And here, I felt like it was not as earned. And this is why I said I have to intersect them. Tongue twisted. The flashbacks are all tied to Ellie's birthday. So first one, 15th birthday, Joel plays Future Days. It didn't really have the impact to me that it did in the game, because the vibes are high in that moment. They're celebrating her birthday. Ellie's making jokes. They're having fun. She demands Joel plays a song for her and sings for her. And so it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll play this. And that's the song he chooses to play. In the game, it feels like he is writing this song and bringing this song to her. And it's about her. And it's saying about their relationship and how he's feeling, and he's wanting her to see that. He's wanting to express that to her, because they've been on the outs, and he loves her, and he wants to just he's using the song to express that if he were to lose her, then he would lose himself. And then it brings on a whole new level of meaning to when Ellie plays it in the theater, because she is now really realizing and resonating with those words herself too, because now she has lost Joel, and she has in the game lost herself and just become completely feral. And we got a little bit of that at the end of the show last week when she kills Nora. But ultimately, the Ellie in the show is not taking things seriously. She's just cracking jokes with Dina. It's almost like a buddy cop comedy. They're going off to get revenge together. Dina has expressed more rage about revenge and those feelings in last week's episode than we have really seen Ellie express yet. Besides, like I said, at the end, in choosing to go towards the hospital and Nora instead of back towards Dina and Jesse at the end of last week's episode, and then torturing Nora to get the information on where Abby is. That song lost its impact for me because of how it has played out in the show. I'm sorry. I hate being like this because I really want to love this season of the show. And I hate that people are like, oh, well, it's not just like the game. But I don't need it to be exactly like the game. But you have so much of that creative team. You have Neil Druckmann, like, at the helm with it too, with Craig Mason side by side. And I feel like the show has lost so much heart that the game had. Okay, I need to calm down. Take a step back. Next flashback, 1 year later. This is the museum scene. Everyone talked about this, and it was a big thing when part 2 came back, the flashback, and seeing Joel and Ellie at the happiest they've ever been. This scene translated to the show perfectly. You see just the love and the affection and excitement on Joel's face as he gives Ellie the tape and the space capsule, and she's experiencing taking off, and she's the happiest we've seen Ellie ever in this show too, and the biggest smile and the most love we've seen out of Joel as well, just asking if he did good, and just that pure happiness and elation in that moment. Just everything feels right, and that is really just touching to hear. Now, everything in that museum scene, like I said, so many moments from there, shot for shot from the game, beautiful, no notes on that. At the end of the museum scene in the game, they come across seeing just kind of the scars of the fireflies and the things going on in the world. They find some notes and some spray paint on the walls of someone, and then at the end, it's the firefly logo, and it says liars underneath it, which just kind of brings everything crashing back to reality. That's not existent here as well. It's just as they're walking away, Ellie sees some fireflies in the field, and it makes her kind of think about the fireflies. Not quite as impactful, but whatever. I get it. Then the next year, on her 17th birthday, Joel's bringing Ellie a cake. He's back from patrol early. Here's Ellie giggling in her room, and she's with Kat. I'm pretty sure Kat is a name. In the game, Kat was the person's name, and I'm pretty sure when we were introduced to Kat and introduces this character in episode 1, that was her name as well, leading the patrol. And it's a whole thing. Joel's getting mad because she has a girl in her room and doing drugs. She's like, you're just doing all the teenage things at the same time. Sex, drugs, and tattoos. And Ellie's like, and getting on and experimenting with girls. And Ellie says it wasn't sex and it wasn't an experiment. And Joel says they'll discuss it later when she's more herself. A little bit of borderline bigotry, old-fashioned Joel coming through here. This is something that's not seen explicitly in the games, but it is implied that these moments happened. And Kat is who gave Ellie the tattoo, and that they had kind of had a thing going on based on Ellie's journal entries, if you read those when you're playing the game. And here in the show, Ellie's going to move out then to the garage. Joel just kind of tries to get her to calm down and says, we'll approach this in a few days. Give me some time to clean it up. So we're starting to get a little bit more tension in their relationship show through. It hasn't really shown in the previous 2 flashbacks. Now we're getting the hints of the tension. And then she's drawing moths, and Joel sees her, asks her what it's all about. She says she's been having like dreams about them and saw it and read about it. And Joel's like, oh, that's like symbolic about change, growing. And then Joel goes to Gail and asks her about doctors and dealing with dreams. And she's like, well, yeah, the shitty ones did. The stupid doctors, they focused on dreams. And he's like, well, what about moths? That's like change, right? She's like, no, that's butterflies. Moths symbolize death. And you see Joel get a little bit concerned and just go away. This is when he's starting to worry a little bit more about Ellie and her thoughts and where she's at. And then you see Ellie packing up her drawings to move out to the garage, and one with the moths says, you have a greater purpose. And just that idea from the first game that Ellie had in her head that she was immune, she was going to be this cure for other people and save people, and was a bit of a savior. And then we get a 2-year time jump. Ellie's 19th birthday. And you see Ellie rehearsing a speech saying she's been thinking about Salt Lake City and wants to understand it and has some questions for Joel. And she's rehearsing these. And it's like, if the Fireflies spotted us a mile from the hospital, how'd they get surprised by an entire group of raiders? If the raiders killed all those soldiers and Marlene and he had to carry her out of there, how'd they get away? And then if there were dozens of immune people, why hasn't anyone heard of any others? Fair questions. Now, this whole revelation, and well, I'll stick with the show, and then I'll get to the games and the differences, and that bugged me. Kind of going with the levity notes here. Joel shows up, says it's her birthday, and for her gift, she's going to get to go on her first patrol. He's going to take her. It's a safe trail, easy one, probably won't get any kills. And then Ellie, I do have to admit, I did laugh when she's like, oh shit, there's a little squirrel fucking a big squirrel. We should probably report that. It did make me laugh. It's a little out of nowhere. Juvenile humor. I laughed at it. Gonna admit it. And then they get a call that Eugene and I was thinking it said Adam was the other person, but this patrol, they were in trouble. Joel tries to tell Ellie, go back to Jackson. And she said, no, I'm not your kid. I'm your partner. We go together. They go together. And there were just some beautiful shots of them riding through the trees, forest, through the hills, mountains there. It looked absolutely beautiful. So some of the most beautiful shots that I've seen in the series so far were in this episode. This episode. It was a singular episode. And then they come across Eugene. He's been bit, and he begs them to go back. He says, hey, I've got an hour. Let me see Gail. Let me see my wife. It'll be fine. They can bring her outside. We'll keep them at a safe distance. I just want to see her one more time. Joel says, nope, not how we do it. You know this. Ellie begs Joel and says, please, let's just tie him up, bring him back. Joel says, fine, go get the horses. I'll bring him. Ellie turns around. She's doubting it. He says, I promise. And then he ends up breaking that promise. He leads Eugene to the edge of the lake, a beautiful shot with the mountains and the water. And Eugene says, and I made note of this because he's begging Joel. He wanted to go back. He wanted to see Gail. He wanted to see his wife. That's the one thing he wanted. He said he had time. Joel's like, don't worry. I'll relay your last words. He's like, well, no, I need her last words for me. I'm dying. Just in that moment, he's like, I want to hear that she loves me. I want to be comforted. I want to see her and hear her voice one more time. And then Joel just kind of calloused. He's like, I want to see her face. Please let that be the last thing I see. And Joel's like, if you love someone, you can always see their face. Just tells him like, I don't really care. Just picture it. Go from memory. You really love him. And like Joel that's how he actually feels about love too, because he can picture the faces of those he loves. And so he knows that's true. He knows he can. But if he thinks about it for half a second, he knows that's not what Eugene needs. That's not what he would want in that moment either. And Eugene says he sees her, and then it cuts to birds flying away as Joel shoots him. Ellie comes back. It's a whole thing. You can tell Ellie is very upset. Joel broke his promise, and it's getting her thinking about Salt Lake City and everything with there too. So when they get back, Joel tells Gail this whole story about how Eugene wanted her to know that he loved her. He wanted to see her, but it was just too dangerous. He didn't want to put her in danger, so he took his own life. He did it. He ended it himself for her. And Ellie is there just stewing and jaw clenched and angry, and tells Gail Eugene begged to see her and he had time, and Joel had promised Eugene and he had promised both of them, and then Joel shot him in the head. And just the tears running down Ellie's face. Like I said, Bella Ramsey, they did a fantastic job in this scene. I felt one of their best, like a great portrayal of the emotion, the anger at Joel still. And just Craig Mazin said it at the end. He said the reason she's saying it in that moment that Ellie is because she wants to punish Joel for what he did. Not just to hurt him, she wants to punish him. And then she looks at Joel and she says, "You swore," as she stomps away. And I thought it was interesting. They did call out because I was curious. I'm like, he didn't swear to Eugene. He didn't. He just said, "I promise." And they said there's a call out to the end of season 1, at that point in the game after Salt Lake City, when they're coming up to Jackson. Ellie tells Joel to swear to her that the story he said was true, and he says, "I swear." So this, if Joel was recognizing that, would click. This is when Ellie really was clued in that he lied about Salt Lake City. It was pretty confirmed for her in that moment that he lied, and she's calling him out. She's saying, "You swore." And I think that was very emotional. And then we get a jump to 9 months later. It's the barn dance, everything that happened in season 1. Ellie and Dina dancing, kiss, Seth, Dyke, Joel punches, shoves, blow up. And then at the end of episode 1, it ends with Joel's on the porch with a guitar. Ellie looks at him and walks on by. And we think that's what happens, and that is the final moment that they see and talk to each other before Joel dies. Here we see that's not the case. Ellie came back and has a conversation with him and is saying, "I had Seth handled. I didn't need you to protect me." They have a little back and forth about Dina. And Ellie just tells Joel in this moment, she's like, "You're such an asshole. You looked me in the eyes. You lied. That look I saw in your eyes when you promised me about Eugene is the same look I saw with Salt Lake City when you told me everything that happened there. So I think I already knew, but that really confirmed it." And she says she needs him to tell her what happened for real, the truth. Otherwise, they're completely done. And so she asks about if there really are any more immune people. He says no. She asks if there were raiders. He says no. She asks if they could have made a cure, and he says yes. Now, I think I would have had an elaborating question there. She doesn't. And then she asks if he killed all of them and Marlene, and he says yes. And then he just says, he's like, "Making a cure would have killed you." And she says, "Then I was supposed to die. Like, then I would have mattered. My life would have had purpose." He took that from her and he took it from everyone else. Like, because of him, she doesn't matter now, is how she views it. And this is a conversation that happens. This porch scene and that part happens in the game. In the game, I'm going to finish this. Joel says, he's like, "Now I'm going to pay the price because Ellie's going to turn away from him. But if he had the second chance of that, he'd do the exact same thing." And she's like, "Because you're selfish." She's like, "No, because I love you." And it's a kind of love he loves her more than she could ever understand. And if she ever has the chance to love someone and have something like that and have someone of her own, he hopes she does a little better than him. So we'll call back to the conversation at the beginning of the episode where his dad had told him, like, his dad was worse. He was doing his best, doing a little bit better. And now Joel is trying to do his best, doing a little bit better. Still fucking up, still not perfect, still definitely could do better. And telling Ellie, like, if you get this chance, do better than me. And Ellie says she doesn't think she can forgive him, but she wants to try. And after that, it cuts to where last week's episode left off, a little bit after it. Ellie is approaching the theater after taking out Nora. And that's where the episode ends. End of the penultimate episode. Very dialogue heavy episode, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of kind of character development for Ellie and Joel's relationship packed into this episode. Okay, now getting to where it takes place in the game and problems they have. It still have problems. What this is now established canonically in here, because at the end of last week's episode, Ellie tells Nora, I know what Joel did. Yep, she does. In the game, you get flashbacks throughout, not just in one episode, one chunk. You don't get all of them at once. They're throughout. And as it tells the story, and as Ellie is going through different emotions and different scenarios there, I feel like everything's building on it. And so there's 2 additional flashbacks that aren't told here in the show. And in the game, there's one where they're clearing out a building. Joel and Ellie, they're looking for guitar strings, if I'm remembering right. Or they could just be clearing it. And they find a dead couple that left Jackson to try to go off and help others. They're like, we got tired of hearing of others' pain, and we just wanted to go try to do some good, but we ran into a horde an hour away. Both of us got bit. And there's a letter that they're like, we both got bit. We decided to end it. And then on the back, it's the guy said, I killed her. I'm too much of a coward. I can't kill myself. And he's a clicker that they come across there. And then Ellie makes a comment about if only they were immune, right? And confronts Joel about him saying there are other people like her. So this is established earlier in the game. She's like, you said there were dozens of other people like me. I've never heard of one, never seen any signs of any. Tell me the truth. And Joel tells her, he's like, no, there is no cure, nothing that could have been done. The people who died there, it's not her fault. It's not her fault because she was immune and that they left Salt Lake City and couldn't be a cure. Nope, not her fault. Nothing could be done. And then there's another flashback where eventually Ellie goes to the hospital herself to try to figure out what happened. And that's when the part where Ellie tells Joel, if you don't tell me the truth, then we're done. You won't see me again. And he tells her that making a vaccine, making a cure would have killed her. And he stopped them. And Ellie says, I'll go back to Jackson, but we're done. And so that's why there is the tenseness and stuff between them when the game opens up, because she knows at that point and has been processing with everything he did in Salt Lake City and at the hospital, everyone he killed for her and robbing her of that purpose. Now, the conversation about her saying, like, I would have had a purpose then, I would have mattered, that part does take place in the game later, and it takes place after that barn scene, but it is the very last thing you see in the game. That porch conversation is how the game ends. So we are doing all sorts of things with the pacing of the game and just putting it in a hat and shaking it around, it feels like in the show. And I'm really struggling with it. But like I said, the dialogue's still the same, and the porch scene I feel like is still great. But like, and it just starts on the porch there where it's Ellie saying he's an asshole because she was supposed to die in that hospital. So she's had the months of knowing everything he did, and she's kind of had time to process and put these thoughts together. Like, my life was supposed to matter, and he took this from me. In the show now, it all happened immediately the day before Joel died, that she found out and she got everything confirmed that there actually was a cure. Because maybe she could have pieced together that he did actually kill everyone else and that there weren't others that were immune. But she would have had no way of knowing for sure that there actually could have been a cure that could have been developed from her. That she has no way of knowing until the day before Joel died. And so she, in that moment, processed all of that, spat it back out to him. She didn't have these months to try to get to a point where she could work on forgiving him. I feel like that is even more of a reason to justify her just being filled with anger and rage, because she found all that out about Joel, his lying to her, everything he did. And I feel like she didn't have any real time to process that before he died. And so then there's even more unresolved feelings there. Before he gets killed. So she should be driven by even more rage and anger and a thirst for revenge in the show. And she's not. She's cracking jokes half the time and feels like she's lollygagging along. Again, until the end of this last episode when she chose going after Nora instead of going back to the theater right away. And then when she kills Nora. But I'm just really struggling with it. Like I said, I really want to watch it. Like the show, I liked part 2, the second game, better than the first one actually, because they just do so much with that story that I really appreciate. And so the game is a masterpiece. I do recommend you play the game. If you haven't, or if you're not a gamer, you don't have a PlayStation, don't want to, watch a video of all the cutscenes played out on YouTube. There were some great compilations put together. But right now, I just feel like we have rushed the development. We have rushed these realizations, and they're trying too hard to make it not as dark and brutal and hopeless as the game was. And I feel like that's to its detriment. We'll see what happens in the future, but that's how I'm feeling right now at the end of the penultimate episode with only one episode left to go this season. Also, they'd been saying in interviews that they have an episode focused on Eugene, kind of like the Bill and Frank ones. No, they didn't. We just get to learn more about a character that we didn't get to learn about in the game, really, if that's what you were talking about. This was nowhere near the Bill and Frank episode. The Bill and Frank episode was a masterpiece focused on those two characters, not the primary ones. This, we had like 5 minutes of Eugene, and he did have some great moments and lines. Like I said, when he's like, no, I need her last words for me, that hit me. Those lines hit, and they were great, and it was beautiful, but don't compare it to the Bill and Frank episode. What are we doing? Okay, now spoilers. So go to the time code if you want to skip this section. This spoilers for future of the game. So things they have for what happens in the game that hasn't happened in the show yet, but will happen either in the finale next week or in season 3. All right. I think they are shooting themselves in the foot. And I said this when I did my episode a year ago with my pitch for and kind of prediction for how they do season 2. Way off, by the way. I thought they were going to slow play it with Pedro Pascal's death. And Joel wouldn't die until this episode, the penultimate episode, maybe. But I said it was going to be very hard to have those dueling stories and timelines of Abby and Ellie and their stories intersecting. It works in the game. You play as Ellie for half of it, then you play as Abby the second half, and they kind of force you into her shoes, and you start getting a little bit of sympathy and understanding, a little heavy-handedly so, trying to make you sympathize with this character more. Like, she has the dogs, Ellie's killing the dogs, like things like that make you a little more see that brutality of Ellie, and then try to sympathize with Abby a little bit more. But what we're doing right now, they are following the structure of the games, except that I kind of think it would be more effective if they had the flashbacks thrown in there every once in a while, besides this one flashback episode. But I get how that could be distracting as well. It's hard. It's a nearly impossible thing to pull off in one season. But they are still setting it up. The preview for next week's episode, we get some scars, we get Isaac, and the final shot of the teaser is the rowboat going towards the aquarium during a storm. So may get the Abby Ellie confrontation, But this is setting it up for season 3 to be entirely Abby focused, and I feel like viewership is going to fucking tank. Now, I will still watch because hot take, the Abby portions and storyline of in part 2 I actually enjoyed more than Ellie's storyline in part 2. In seeing that play out and the motivations and everything that was happening corresponding. Also, I have to call out last week I said I thought we weren't going to get the Rat King. Rat King is with Abby, not Ellie. So I was wrong there. We may still get the Rat King in season 3, and those could have just been long, slow play teases for that. But I think they're going to lose people if season 3 is all focused on Caitlyn D versus Abby. But hey, we'll give it a chance. We'll see what happens. Like I said, there's so much as play left in the story, and I'm also worried about how brutal and dark the game is, and Bella Ramsey not being able to tap into that for Ellie. So we'll see. Ellie in the game gets so beat down and brutal and almost unredeemable. I'm not seeing Bella Ramsey being able to tap into that yet, but we'll see. Okay, that's going to end the spoilers. So, final thoughts. 1 episode left. Looks like we're going to get an action-packed finale. It's still hard for me. Only 7 episodes this season. I get it. The story you want to tell, all that, a good cutting off point. There's a lot of stuff to cram in to next week's episode to even stay on track with the games. And I don't want another 2-year wait between seasons. It's rough. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode. Do you share my qualms with pacing and differences from the game, or are you someone who didn't play the game and you're like, you are wild, this is a brilliant story, I'm loving everything about it, just enjoy shit, stop worrying about the source material? Which is fair. I get that. I say that to comic book people all the time because I only read certain comic books, and so I'm like, yeah, it's a different thing, enjoy it for what it is. This show's a different thing, enjoy it for what it is. I know, and I want to. I just struggle. I feel like season 1 was such a fantastic adaptation, and maybe it's because I enjoyed the second game more, but I just feel like I'm having a much harder time with this season of the show. So, but don't be toxic. It's not just because Bella Ramsey is Bella Ramsey and looks are not all that. Like I said, the one acting thing kind of took me back this episode, but then there were 2 very good acting choices and performances. So we'll see. We'll see you next week for the finale. Wednesday, I'm going to be reviewing the Angelica tour of Hamilton. I saw it this past week. So if you're into musicals, stay tuned. See new episodes drop on the regular podcast feed. Wednesdays, 6 a.m. Central Time, YouTube, podcast platforms. The episodes drop at midnight, so get a little early release there. We'll see you next week, same time and place for the season 2 finale of The Last of Us. Don't forget to go down once more. Later.